Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at a Terra by Battat set, and it is a very large Terra by Battat set, and in fact it is actually the largest Terra by Battat set that I have ever looked at. It is their electronic Tyrannosaurus Rex set, the light and sound version, and you can see there's just a ton of stuff inside here included to take a look at with you guys, and definitely a plethora here of extras included with the Rex itself. The box is pretty much your typical Terra by Battat box, nothing really too special with this, so we'll go ahead, flip it around and take a look at the back. And in typical Terra by Battat fashion, we have some information here on the Tyrannosaurus Rex itself. Quite a bit of information, which I do think is really awesome. I love that Battat always includes this stuff here on the back because it's just nice to see them trying to kind of educate kids and everything if they pick this up and end up getting a really cool T-Rex toy. They always have a bunch of information for you to actually learn about the species itself. So that is extremely, extremely cool if you ask me. So let's go ahead and break this open and we can take a look at the Lava Mountain T-Rex Adventure set by Terra by Battat. So there's quite a bit of stuff to kind of take out and put together, but we have the giant mountain here to display. Pull this up. You can get a good idea of the entire thing, see what it all looks like. Really cool looking for sure. There's also this little guy of fire here. We got that little fire to put right there. And there were a few things that kind of were extras that you had to take out and put in, like this skull and then this little torch. And there's also a ladder over here. Then you have a boulder that you put at the top, actually. So you can see it up there, right there. You put them up there at the top, and we'll take a look at how that all plays out eventually here. Then it also comes with this really cool, goofy-looking old-school dinosaur toy. Definitely a toy that I'm sure I played with as a child, or something similar at least. And then we also have an egg, I assume a dinosaur egg, which actually does open up. We also have a little baby dinosaur, who I guess would be a baby T-Rex. We can put inside the egg if we choose to, as well as kind of like a little lasso to, I guess, hook our Tyrannosaurus if we really want to be crazy and try to capture it. We've got a little axe here, sort of a primitive looking axe. A human character, who I would imagine is probably the guy that is trying to catch the Tyrannosaurus and I guess save it maybe from the lava mountain, I'm not too sure. As well actually as his Jeep, we have here, and the Tyrannosaurus itself, which doesn't want to stand. There we go. Actually stands pretty good once we get it balanced out there. But you can see the T-Rex looks pretty much just like the previous Terra by Battat version, the smaller version as far as both the sculpt and paint. It's pretty much exactly what you would expect as far as the larger light and sound version compared to the normal smaller version. However, I must say, looking at this T-Rex here, it actually has a lot nicer detail on it than some of the others. A lot of the other light and sound figures, in comparison to their smaller counterparts, have kind of like drowned out detail, a little bit smoother looking detail, a bit more muted. But this T-Rex actually does sport some pretty nice detailing overall, some nice skin texture on the figure. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at all of this right now. Of course, we're going to start with the dinosaur, because why wouldn't we? But if we take a look up here at the head of our Tyrannosaurus Rex, you can again see some pretty decent looking skin texture, actually some pretty nice sculpt work as far as like the scaling and everything goes. You even have some nice detailing there around the nostril and in the eye socket. So straight away I feel like this Rex is a lot more detailed than some of the others were, and actually does sport some pretty nice sculpt overall. I mean, it's not exactly the same as what you would see on the smaller, in my opinion, a little bit better version, as I am quite partial to the smaller dinosaurs released by the Terra by Battat line, but this one actually does straight away look much better than most of the larger light and sound versions. If you're like me and you're looking more for like the detail aspect and everything, you'll definitely find a good bit more here on this Rex than some of the other light and sound figures. Again, the coloration is quite similar to the standard Terra by Battat version. You can see like a greenish coloration and then also like a kind of beige color that leaks back and forth between the two, and I think it was a really nice, very natural looking color scheme for the figure. And you can also see this kind of almost like a maroonish purple sort of. It's a very strange color, but it's a nice a little bit of flashiness, but it's nice and dark as far as the tones go. So I do think that that also looks quite nice on the figure and really is nicely applied. All the paint seems to be beautifully applied overall on this Rex. It doesn't really look like paint on a figure or anything. It actually does genuinely look like body color, so I do like it quite a bit. If we look at the inside of the mouth, you can see that the teeth are all sculpted individually. They are really rounded, so of course if you're buying this for your child, there's probably no chance of them actually getting hurt with this, as there's no real sharp edges to the teeth. Personally, of course, I'm a fan of more of like a model version, so I would have preferred the teeth to be sharper. But again, I can understand exactly what they're aiming for with this set, so it 100% makes sense that the teeth would be a bit rounded there. And I still don't think it actually looks that bad either. Even with the teeth being rounded, and you take it out there and get a nice little look at it from a distance, it still actually looks quite decent. You can see the inside of the mouth does sport some detailing up there on the top of the mouth. You can also see like a pinkish coloration in there, but there's not too much. It's not overly detailed, but it doesn't look bad either. As well as the bottom jaw here, the lower jaw, you can also see sports that pinkish coloration down there, so it looks quite nice. The tongue, you can see, is a reddish color, but it's kind of like a clear reddish plastic, as are the eyes. And that is, of course, because you have an action feature, which once we actually push the button for the action feature, you can see the eyes and the tongue do light up, so that's pretty cool. Especially if you're a kid, I think that's something that kids will quite enjoy. Moving down the neck, you can again see lots of kind of creasing going on in the skin, as well as some nice bumpy scales going on. It actually looks pretty darn good if you ask me. I mean, it's not, again, as good as the smaller version of this Rex, but it's definitely not bad either. Once we get down here into the actual body, I really do quite like the skin texture down here. I think it's really beautiful overall. You can see kind of like some bumpy scales here and there, but also a lot of creasing going on. And I definitely think that it looks pretty nice as far as the sculpt work goes. And once we come down here, we can actually see the shoulder blade here, and we move down into the Rex arms. The Rex arms are pretty nicely sculpted as well, and you can see that the fingernails are painted with a nice dark gray. So you do have quite a bit of paint variation included on the figure, and you can again see that kind of same color scheme with the darker green and then that beige kind of leaking back and forth, as well as some beige spots going on up here. Nice kind of movement here being shown in the skin with like the creasing of the thigh pushing into the body. You can make out the hip bone there. As we move down into the leg looks a little bit awkward, I will say that, but it isn't that bad. I mean, it's mostly just the thigh area because of the way it's connected. It's kind of awkwardly connected a little bit under the hip bone. You would expect it to maybe be connected up a little higher. So it makes it look a little strange, but I don't think it really takes away from the figure too much. And you can definitely see some more nice detailing as far as creasing going on, as well as a very large bulging calf muscle right there. You can pick out the kneecap a little bit there in the front. For some reason, the legs have a glossy appearance, but the rest of the body doesn't really have that. I don't know why, but that is exactly what's going on here. Once we move down into the foot, you can again see some nice detailing as we lead down into the foot, and you have the nice toes here, nicely painted nails. Once again, the nails are not sharp or anything. They are curved there so that you don't hurt anyone with your figure. And we do have the dew claw present back here, but unfortunately there is no nail paint on the dew claw. For some reason, everyone just likes to skip over the dew claw. I don't know why. As we continue to move down the body, you can see some more nice skin texture. You can also see kind of a lever here, which is what controlled the action feature of the noise, the eyes lighting up, the mouth going, the tongue lighting up, all that fun stuff was utilized with that little lever right there. And then we lead out the length of the tail, and again, it looks pretty nice as far as both the sculpt and paint work goes. Definitely, I like this one quite a bit more than most of these light and sound figures, even though I'm not a huge hater of them. I just feel like these smaller figures are a lot nicer than these larger ones when you kind of take into a collector's standpoint. If you're a child looking for a very cool toy, I think you'll probably like these more than the smaller version. So it really just depends on who you're catering to, but you can also see that the opposing side of the head looks quite nice as far as both sculpt and paint goes. As we start to lead down the neck, you can now see the unfortunate screw holes that are included with these figures, which personally, I am not a big fan of screw holes. I kind of have Hasbro Jurassic Park flashbacks every time I see them. So it's not something that I am a big fan of overall, are the screw holes, but it is what it is. I mean, we have screw holes on every single one of them, so I kind of expected there to be some screw holes on this figure. And again, with these aimed at children, children aren't going to look at that and say, oh, I don't like this figure now because there's screw holes on it. They're probably not really going to care too much. It's just more of like a collector thing. A lot of the viewers of my channel probably won't really like the screw hole thing. Myself included, I absolutely do not like screw holes, but again, it is what it is. I also have the smaller version of this Rex, so it's really an idea of picking and choosing which figure you like the most, as opposed to being stuck with only one that has screw holes. You can get the smaller, in my opinion, nicer looking version that doesn't have screw holes, and then maybe buy this one for your kid. Again, nice detailing as we move down the neck. Lots of really nice creasing in the skin. Nice kind of bumpy scaling as well. You can see the arm once again. Decently sculpted. You can even make out some muscle tone there in the arm. Shoulder blade is present, and you also have the really beautiful skin texture here in the stomach region once again. You can see a few little holes here again to give you the opportunity to actually hear the sound that the Rex makes. You can see the underside also sports some detail, but for the most part it's a little bit muted. You can definitely see that there is a little bit of drowned out detail. It's not really all that great as far as the detail on the underneath. It's a little bit smooth in comparison to what it probably should be, but you can see some osteoderms and stuff here and there. And then we have the leg over here, which looks almost just like the previous leg did as far as kind of having that glossy appearance and then being connected down a little bit from where the hip bone is. But you can see some nice detailing on this leg as well, and really nice creasing in the skin here at the joint of the knee. You can also pick up on the very nice muscle tone, nice paint job, and the foot down here once again, just like we had seen on the previous side. And then back up here, we can see the tail as we run out the length of the tail. You do have that one last screw hole, and then the tail curves nicely here at the end. So overall, I feel like the Rex isn't that bad, and actually is much better than a lot of these light and sound figures as far as the detailing goes and the paintwork. So I do actually like this Rex. As far as some of the extras go, you have this, again, somewhat goofy looking dinosaur figure here. He's kind of like a mixture of orange and yellow and just has that kind of I'm angry screaming face. You can see he is hollow and has a whole bunch of spikes on his back. No idea exactly what species we were aiming for with the figure, but he's still pretty fun, something that I know I played with as a child, or at least a figure that again was very similar to that. Then we also have the egg and the baby. So once we open the egg, you can see that it does open quite nicely. We could toss our little baby Rex inside the egg, close the egg up, if I can find the correct spot to, there we go. Now our little baby Rex is inside, so you can hatch yourself a Tyrannosaurus baby to go with your adult, and he is actually quite cute. I will say that. Definitely an adorable little baby Rex figure. He's pretty nicely detailed, but nothing over the top. He doesn't look bad, but he's nothing to write home about either. But still a pretty fun little extra, especially if you're a child. I'm sure kids will eat that up for sure. Then you also have this little lasso here, which is pretty cool. Definitely looks nice overall. Nicely detailed. And then we also have our human character, who again, just like everything else pretty much in this set, is pretty nicely detailed, nicely painted. Does include some nice variation of paint, and everything included with the figure has a bit of a glossy appearance. So another cool extra to the set. And then you have the Jeep, which has a very strong Jurassic Park feel just by the simple fact that we have a Jeep included, and also the fact that we have humans and dinosaurs interacting with each other, which we know clearly did not actually happen in real life. So straight away it has a bit of a Jurassic Park feel to it. And the Jeep seems pretty well made, honestly. It definitely doesn't feel like it's cheap or anything. Definitely feels like it would hold up quite well to some abuse from your children playing with it. And overall is, again, a pretty nice looking extra to this set. It's not super detailed or anything, but it's definitely not bad either. Pretty cool, if you ask me. And then you also have the kind of hatchet, that little axe, that very primitive looking axe to utilize to protect yourself with, I guess, if you are the human character, which is also quite nicely detailed. And then we have this gigantic mountain that does come with the set. And again, you can see the fire here that you did have to include, that little torch. You also have a little fire to put on right there, which does stay quite nicely. You also have this little kind of ladder going on over here, which does look really cool. And I love the fact that they've kind of included some broken steps on it to really give you that kind of treacherous feel overall to the set. Almost has like an Indiana Jones type feel to the set overall. And I do really quite like that little addition that they've given you to that ladder there. You can see on the base there is actually a Tyrannosaurus footprint, as well as some vegetation and some bones. So it does look really quite cool overall. You also have another footprint up here, as the Rex apparently walks straight through the lava. I must have burned his foot. And then you can see that there is a Triceratops Skull, kind of a goofy looking Triceratops Skull, but it is a fun little extra. You can also turn that pretty much any way you want. Look up and down, left, right, all that fun stuff. So it's really up to you how you want to display the Triceratops Skull that does sit there. And then as we move down here, we do have a little cage that we can put something in or hide our human in if we want to. The door does come up, does go back down. And then over here, we also have kind of a face on the side of our mountain that does actually include teeth. You can see the evil looking eyes as well as the very large teeth. And then you have this little lever right here, which opens the teeth a bit. So the teeth can retract and expand. And you also have some more vegetation down here as well. So the mountain overall is actually quite cool. And as far as like a child playing with this set, I think they would absolutely love it. And then you have the boulder all the way up here at the top, which if we push, comes flying all the way down there and actually stops quite well in that spot. It doesn't go flying off or anything, which is really cool because it's not something that hopefully any kids will lose, or, well, they probably will, but they won't lose as easily as the stone does actually stop. The boulder does stop right there when you get to that Rex footprint. So overall, again, a really cool addition to the set for sure. As far as a size goes, we're only going to measure the Rex and the mountain because I figured they're probably the two things that you're probably the most interested in as far as a size goes. And for the mountain, you're looking at about 13, maybe 13 and a quarter inches, or about 34 centimeters, somewhere in that range for a height. It was a little hard for you to actually probably see that, but trust me, that's about what it is. And then if we bring the Tyrannosaurus in, if you have it standing in a tripod position with the tail unrealistically down on the ground, for a height, you're going to see it at about 11 inches or about 27.5 centimeters. But if we actually pull the Rex up here and stand him at a more comfortable level that you would imagine a Rex would be happy at, it is now at about 9 inches, maybe a little under, maybe like 8 3/4 inches, or about 22.5 centimeters for a height. And then for a length, if we take it from the snout to the tail when it is in this position, you are looking at about 16 inches or about 40 centimeters for a length. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack and Robert Muldoon next to our Terra by Battat Light and Sound Tyrannosaurus Rex, and you can definitely tell next to these figures here that that Rex does actually sport some pretty significant size, definitely very nicely sized overall, especially with the Papo Rex there being a larger figure. You can really see next to that figure that this Rex is quite large, easily one of the two largest of the Light and Sound figures, the other being the Acrocanthosaurus. So definitely a pretty darn big figure and large set. As far as articulation on the Rex goes, we do have the articulated jaw, but you can see that the jaw doesn't close all the way, which now it's going to make its noise. We also have articulation in the neck there, and that is because when we push this button, again, the head does move. I stated earlier about the kind of jaw going and then the eyes and the tongue lighting up, but the neck actually moves as well when you push that button. And I do kind of like that sound effect because it's very different than most dinosaur sound effects. You usually just get that very kind of classic roar, and with this you kind of get a more unique sound. So I do appreciate that Terra by Battat kind of went the alternate route and tried to actually make something a bit different and unique. You also have articulation in the arms and articulation in the legs. Of course, both legs, both arms. So you can also display the figure in a more natural looking position for a Rex, or you can also display it in a standing position, kind of a tail dragging tripod position like an old school dinosaur. It's really up to you, but shockingly the Rex does balance quite nicely, and I think that's also due to kind of the larger feet. You can see that the feet, like where the toes would normally end, would probably be about here, but they've added a little bit of extra to it down on the bottom and flattened it out quite nicely, so it does balance really, really well. So this Lava Mountain Tyrannosaurus adventure set from Terra by Battat is actually quite cool, especially when you take into consideration that the Tyrannosaurus itself is quite nice and is quite a bit of a breath of fresh air, I would say, as far as these Light and Sound figures go, because although they're not as bad as I once thought they were, I kind of was a little bitter when they first showed up because I was more so hoping for a lot of the smaller figures that we all know and love from the Terra by Battat line, the stuff that we kind of grew up on. and I was really hoping for more of those to get released, and then once they started releasing these kind of larger Light and Sound figures, I was a good bit bummed out, honestly, because I wanted more of the smaller ones, and there were so many figures that we were all waiting for a re-release of, and then that didn't happen, so I was pretty sad when we started to get these as opposed to the others. But now that I've had some time to kind of come to terms with it, and taking into consideration the fact that these are quite clearly made for kids, and the stuff that I collect, the smaller ones that I would normally go crazy over, are kind of more aimed at children and collectors. So you kind of have to adjust and just get used to the fact that they have two different variations of dinosaurs, and I really do, after taking all that into consideration, actually quite like a lot of the Light and Sound figures. They're just not as good as the others, I will say that. But this T-Rex actually is quite appealing, I will say. Overall, as far as a larger version of the Terra by Battat Rex goes, I think it's quite nicely done. There are a few awkward looking areas, like the legs kind of look a bit too long in general for the body, and the way that the leg kind of connects for the articulation is a bit strange, I will also say that. But overall, I still feel like the figure in general is pretty appealing looking and has some much nicer detailing in it than the other Light and Sound figures did. So in that aspect alone, I feel like this figure is a lot nicer than some of the others, but even the paint job is really nicely done, and the action feature, although not something that most collectors would be psyched about, is still quite exciting when it comes to a child's view of the figure, and something I feel like children really would enjoy is the addition of that very cool sound effect, and then the light up feature is definitely something I think kids would like. The only thing I think that is a little bit of an issue as far as the Rex goes, aside from the somewhat awkward look with the legs, is the fact that for some reason none of the Light and Sound figures' jaws fully articulate to a closed position, and I feel like that's kind of a missed opportunity as far as the playability feature goes, because your dinosaur is going to have a good bit of a harder time kind of chomping down on things if its jaw cannot articulate all the way. So maybe something that Terra by Battat can work on in the future would be allowing their jaws to articulate a bit better. You also have many different extras with the human figure, the lasso, the hatchet. You also have an egg and a baby dinosaur that can go inside the egg. You have that very cool yet strange looking orange yellowish dinosaur. You have a really nice looking Jeep, very reminiscent of Jurassic Park, minus the fact that the color scheme is very different. And then you have that really cool mountain area that you include the lava area, I guess it would be a volcano, up there at the top, and there is just a ton of playability on the set overall, including that mountain. There is just so much that kids could probably do with it, and then including all those other extras is just kind of like next level as far as having a ton to do with this set. If you ask me, it is definitely a really good purchase if you're a parent looking to get yourself a very cool set for your kid, a very cool dinosaur set. Definitely not a bad way to go, as there is quite a bit included, and overall is something I feel like kids would really quite like. If you are a collector, I actually do like the Rex quite a bit, so it may still be appealing to some collectors, because I think the Rex, again, looks a lot better than some of the previous Light and Sound figures did, so I actually do quite like the Rex, and think it is a decent looking figure for sure, and definitely something that I am quite happy to have in my collection. So whether you're a parent looking for something for your kid or a collector, regardless, still a pretty darn cool set either way. So I will include a link in the description if you would like to pick this up on the Amazon Terra by Battat store. So make sure you check the description, head on over there and pick up this really cool Lava Mountain T-Rex adventure set from Terra by Battat, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.